affiliated to persons linked to criminal activities and that police officials are involved in corruption. Two political parties had written to Didiza to ask for a debate on this matter. However, at this stage, Didiza had directed the portfolio committees on police, justice and constitutional development, as well as the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence to look into these revelations. Parliamentary spokesperson Moloto Mothapo explains.
The Speaker of the National Assembly has today asked the Portfolio Committee on Police, Justice and Constitutional Development, as well as the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, to consider on an urgent basis, in terms of their respective mandates, the wide-ranging allegations regarding security matters that have implications for the country's national security. In relation to the debate requested by two political parties, the Speaker believes that it will not be appropriate to hold such a debate as these allegations remain unsubstantiated at this stage.
Lastly, Greece will stop processing asylum applications from people coming from North Africa for 3 months after a rise in arrivals on the island. The spike in arrivals has put pressure on the two islands, which lack organized migration reception camps and have struggled to find temporary housing facilities. The migrants mainly come from the Middle East and North Africa, including nationals from Sudan, Egypt and Bangladesh. Recapping on your top stories, opposition political parties in Cameroon meeting in the capital Yaoundé have failed to produce a single candidate to face 92-year-old Paul Biya in the Central African State's October presidential elections. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News, the African perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Morocco wants to bounce back. The DR Congo, of course, wanting to survive the second round of the WAFCON tournament, with, of course, great money also up for grabs at this year's Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. And Chelsea win big after making it to the final of the FIFA Club World Cup. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Thami Ngubeni on Africa in Business, 4 till 5 p.m. Central African Time.
It is exactly 7 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. A very good afternoon to you, Africa. This is Africa in Business, bringing you the latest developments in the world of business from across the African continent. Chief among those, later on today, we are going to be talking to ABSA Investment strategist Lindile Malchas as we look at the performance of the global and local markets. Also on our menu this afternoon, a look at BRICS Health, the summit of the BRICS group of nations, which took place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, was seen as a platform where most powerful political alliances in the global south was trying to revive and reinvent a collective approach to the world's problems. We'll focus on the issue of universal health this afternoon. And perhaps a good place to start for us would be the health summit that has been taking place and the USA and BRICS. The US President Donald Trump is intensifying his opposition to the BRICS group of rapidly growing economies, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, cautioning that their efforts to challenge the United States dollar's global dominance pose a risk to America's economic leadership. But the main question here is, why is Donald Trump so concerned about BRICS? Channel Africa's business reporter Innocent Simosa has the details.
I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard at any time. If you have a smart president, you will never lose the standard. If you have a stupid president like the last one, you would lose the standard. You wouldn't have the dollar as you. And if we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like losing a war, a major world war. We would not be the same country any longer. We're not going to let that happen. The dollar, you ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way.
That's the voice of US President Donald Trump expressing his views regarding the BRICS bloc, just as BRICS leaders convened in Rio de Janeiro this week for their annual summit. Trump vowed to slap an additional 10% tariff on any nation backing the group. But why is Donald Trump so afraid of BRICS? CEO of T-Zoro Global Advisory, Mthunzi Mdwaba, weighs in.
In terms of why Donald Trump is so afraid of BRICS, you will be aware that the United Nations was started by the United States of America under the guise of loving multilateralism. But actually, the US has always known that in the UN, they'll always be in charge. And therefore, although it looks ostensibly like multilateralism, it's actually unilateralism. They're able to dictate what happens. And so are all the other platforms, the G20, the G7, they were all started by the United States and the Europeans and so on. So BRICS is actually the only platform that works being initiated by an alternative platform in terms of the multipolarity that the world is now presenting.
Mdwaba says BRICS represents a powerful alliance that operates beyond America's control.
So BRICS provides an alternative that they have no control over. There's absolutely no control. And BRICS presents a powerhouse, especially now that it's BRICS Plus. You've got powers like Iran. Of course, you know what Iran is doing at the moment with Israel. The US is aligned to Israel. There's also the Palestinian war that South Africa, as part of BRICS, is protected by the other BRICS countries and so on and so on.
The question is, can South Africa thrive without America? And what would it take to get there?
Absolutely. We've always been able to do without America. AGOA has actually been a very big heavyweight over our necks. Some of us have said for years that it needs to go. So that we can be self-sufficient, we can be independent. We are very able to do things for ourselves. And Trump knows this is fear. This is the last throw of the dice. This is the last kick of the horse. And what it will take is that we focus on working with the other BRICS countries in South Africa. We focus on trade amongst ourselves. We focus on intra-trade within Africa. We focus on the Africa Free Trade Agreement and make sure that the self-sufficiency is amongst us as a collective. We are able to work on policies that are good for us as the developing world. We are able to implement these policies, and we're able to demonstrate that we can do without the US. We just need to do it once, and then we can have the confidence to walk on by ourselves and then run.
For Channel Africa News, I am Innocent Simosa, Johannesburg.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 12 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. We're not quite done yet with BRICS. Yes, we focused on the United States and BRICS. We'll also, a little bit later on this afternoon, be looking into the universal health coverage that was extensively covered during the BRICS summit. One of the major goals is to enable regional manufacturing of medicine and vaccines. We'll be joined by Dr. Stravlo Nicolau from PharmaCare a little bit later. That's around 4:40 p.m. this afternoon. But for now, we turn our focus to Lesotho, where the government has declared a national state of disaster. This is due to the soaring unemployment rate in the country. This is largely due to the country grappling with mass job losses resulting from the economic fallout of U.S. tariffs and aid cuts. The declaration, which was gazetted on Monday, gives the government additional powers, including the ability to bypass standard procedures, and will be in force for 2 years. Ministries have also been ordered to allocate 2% of their budgets to job creation efforts. For more on this, we joined on the line by Lesotho Labour Council's Secretary General, Paul Simatlane. A very good afternoon to you, Secretary General. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Yes, good afternoon, my sister, and good afternoon to all your listeners. Thank you.
And what is your reaction, sir, to the government declaring youth unemployment a state of disaster?
Actually, as the Labour Federation, the declaration of unemployment as a state of disaster is long overdue. because it has been for some time that the youth that we train and produce from tertiary institutions have been going out without employment for a very long period of time. If I were to make an example, some of them probably graduated 20 years ago from the tertiary institution, but they have never been employed. And that has been a challenge for the government of Lesotho, for us as the Labour Federation, and of course for the whole world. And this is why, my sister, even when we participate in some of these international labor conferences, like the one that we have just attended in Geneva, you will see that one of the discussion topics was on the transitioning from informal to formal economy. And this year around, because you remember in 2015, we discussed strategies of transitioning from informal to formal economy in an attempt to create unemployment, because the formal sector of the economy apparently appears to be flooded. This is why a lot of university graduates are being
Mr. Simatlana, it's quite clear from what you're saying and from the numbers that this high unemployment is not solely due to the reciprocal tariffs that the United States has instituted on Lesotho. Yes, it exacerbates the situation, but it is a pre-existing situation. What would you highlight as the root causes behind this unemployment? I mean, you're saying, for example, that there are people who graduated and haven't worked for 20 years. That is literally their entire adult life.
It's misery. It's really misery. And I think that is one of the factors that has apparently motivated the government to actually be engaging all the stakeholders in various strategies that can be employed to address the situation of unemployment in the country. Like on the next week, we are attending a strategic planning meeting, whereby we'll be also talking about how do we, everybody, according to the declaration, every citizen has been called to engage in developing and initiating strategies in an attempt to create employment for the youth, especially for the youth in the country.
So let's look at the state of disaster, Mr. Simatlane, and what it actually means and how the government is going to use this in order to create more jobs. Do you have a clearer understanding of what the way forward is now, post the declaration?
No. As of now, we don't. And this is one of the reasons why we have actually agreed to participate in some of these strategic planning meetings organized by the government of the Kingdom of Lesotho, because we are not yet clear as to the actual implementation of the declaration itself. It has to be unpacked for us so that all of us become also participants and also should be taken on board.
It is quite a dire situation, as you painted for us a bit earlier on. And taking a look at the 50% reciprocal tariffs that Donald Trump has actually, instituted on Lesotho, what would be the immediate impact on the textile garment workers? We do know that the textile industry accounts for around 20% odd of the country's GDP and exports largely to the United States. How is the union preparing for the potential large-scale layoffs?
Yeah, really, like we have rightly put it, the immediate impact is the immediate closure of the textile industry. That's what it means. It's the immediate closure and the immediate loss of employment and immediate collapse of our trade unions now in the textile industry. This is why tomorrow we are attending a meeting for a special project called Sustain Project, organized by the International Labour Organization, which of course according to understanding, may come up some of the attempts that we may use to address the current situation.
And what are the numbers that we're talking about, the prospective layoffs from the textile industry alone?
The numbers of what?
The numbers that are the number of jobs that are going to be laid off. The numbers that I've been hearing are estimated at around 30,000. Is that accurate to your knowledge?
Yes, actually, I think it's even more than 30,000 losses of jobs.
All right, thank you very much.
That we are anticipating to lose.
It certainly will be quite a. It certainly will be quite a dire impact, but we'll continue watching the developments as well as how the strategies are going to be put in place following the declaration of the state of disaster. We thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Lesotho Labour Council Secretary General, Mr. Paul Simatlane, taking us to exactly 20 minutes after 4 p.m.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Mzansi is more than just a game, it's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory. And now the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday, the 12th of July at 4 p.m. Central African Time. Watch it live on SABC2, or you could stream it anywhere on SABC Plus. That is the SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on iOS, Android, and your smart TV. Switch to stream. No subscription needed. SABC Sport, for the love of the game.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
O surto da cólera em Angola tem causado grande preocupação, afetando já mais de metade das províncias do país. Simultaneamente, a Agência dos Estados Unidos para o Desenvolvimento Internacional, USAID, um dos maiores doadores mundiais de assistência humanitária, decidiu não priorizar os países com maior incidência de malária. Para discutirmos as causas do alastramento da cólera em Angola e os impactos dessa decisão da USAID, convidamos o Dr. Jeremias Agostinho, médico e mestre em saúde pública, para partilhar a sua visão sobre o tema.
A doença, nesse momento, representa o maior risco de saúde pública que nós temos. Nos últimos anos, a nossa preocupação esteve sempre centrada com os casos de malária, os casos de tuberculose e também de infecção pulmonar. A forma como, em pouco menos de 2 meses, os casos de cólera vêm aumentando, acaba por representar, nessa altura, um dos maiores desafios que o país tem. É expectável que, nesta fase, o número de casos venha a aumentar.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is exactly 23 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa. We turn our focus now to South Africa's Financial Sector Conduct Authority, the FSCA. It says it has imposed nearly 120 million rand in fines. This is over the past financial year. Now, there is a decrease from the previous year, but the FSCA has noted the absence of a complex fraud case similar to Steinhoff's. The financial sector watchdog has provided an update on its enforcement interventions between April 1st, 2024 and the end of March this year. Nosipo Khatebe has the details.
The Financial Sector Conduct Authority says it remains committed to investigating high-impact financial crimes. In its latest regulatory actions report, now in its third year, the FSCA says there's been an almost 60% increase in new cases received during the period under review. The financial sector watchdog says of the new cases, 70% are related to unregistered financial services and insurance activities. FSCA Commissioner Unathi Kamlana says they are also turning to technology as part of their enforcement approach.
The strategic intent here is to begin to deploy advanced digital tools and analytics, the use of analytics to detect misconduct earlier, where we are able to respond faster, much more efficiently, and coordinate more effectively across the supervisory landscape. And this is particularly important given the growing wave of digital scams and online fraud and online harm in general.
The report also notes other actions taken by the FSCA, including issuing 107 public warnings and suspending or cancelling 406 licenses. The regulator has undertaken over 1,350 enforcement-related interventions during the 2024 to 2025 financial year. The executive responsible for enforcement at the FSCA, Gerard van der Venter, says there's also a lot of attention given to online harm, including social media scams and finfluencers.
What's available to us are hotlines, so to speak, to the platforms where you can report a fraud. But that is not ideal for a regulator because those lines are really for the public. And the problem with those lines is we don't get any feedback to whether anything has actually been done. So we have started reaching out to these platforms, and there are platforms that are more active as far as fraud is concerned than others, for instance, Telegram. We started reaching out and having conversations with them, and those conversations are around anti-fraud measures and how we can help to avoid that, and about information sharing, of course. But this is not just a South African initiative.
With reference to efforts to get South Africa off the FATF grey list, the FSCA has also clarified that it does not have the jurisdiction to investigate actual money laundering and terrorist financing. Nosipho Khatebe, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is 27 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. The National Consumer Commission in South Africa says it has received recall notifications from Volkswagen of South Africa, Volvo Cars South Africa, and Toyota South Africa Motors. The vehicles are being recalled due to a defect in the front passenger seat belt. The Commission has advised consumers with affected vehicles to urgently book their vehicles with their nearest approved dealerships for a thorough vehicle check at no cost. For more on this, we joined on the line by Prudence Moila, who is Head of Division for Complaints and Investigations at the National Consumer Commission. A very good afternoon to you, ma'am. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Thank you for having us, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Perhaps let's try and get an understanding of the scope of this problem. How many vehicles are affected? This is across VW, Volvo, and Toyota.
So for the Golf 8, which is VW, we're talking about 159 vehicles that were sold between 16 April 2025 and 30 June 2025. And for Volvo, it's about 26 vehicles, the XC90 Volvos, the plug-in hybrid, as well as the pure electric vehicles that were the models of 2025 to 2026, which were recently sold as well. And for the Hino 500 series, we're talking about 6,662, the trucks that were made available from the 11th of May 2017 to the 14th of December 2023, and from the 31st of May 2018 to 25 December 2024. So we're talking about quite a large number of them when it talks to Hino 500 series.
I've been looking at the research here, and the main issue seems to be a defect in the front passenger seat belt. That's what's been reported. But I see Correct. With the Volvo XC90 plug-in hybrid, I've also found that some braking systems are disabled in certain instances. Could you clarify for us exactly what that means?
Yeah, so the one with the seatbelt, the one with the front passenger seatbelt, it only concerns the 155 Golf 8, which is a recall by Volkswagen South Africa, but also the one with the Volvo XC90. That's the one that you correctly state that it's with the pedal, that is problematic. The braking system that is problematic.
Are these recalls limited to South Africa, or is it further afield as well on the rest of the African continent?
Yeah, I think that research we haven't done as yet, because our concern, obviously, as the National Consumer Commission of South Africa, is with regard to vehicles that are made available in South Africa and also, in the surrounding area. So I think the message is really meant for South African consumers at this stage.
There are two major questions that I have arising from this. The first is, what if lives have been lost and there have been serious fatalities due to the malfunctioning of these particular vehicles? Can those who are affected now, in retrospect, actually go back to Volvo, to Toyota, to Volkswagen, and actually lay a claim for injuries, lives lost, or damages caused?
Absolutely. The Consumer Protection Act, I think Section 61, makes it very, very clear. While the Act makes provision for product recalls, it doesn't take away the ultimate responsibility for whatever damages that may be caused by the faults in these vehicles. As for now, there hasn't been any reported incidents, but we are watching the space. But we also say to consumers and users of this vehicle to please speak to the National Consumer Commission as and when you either maybe receive bad service while taking the vehicles through for these campaigns, number one. Number two, but also as and when you have experienced such in terms of any kind of loss as a result of the safety concerns that have been stated up front.
And with regard to the recall process, how are you as the NCC monitoring the manufacturer's recall process, and what recourse is available to consumers? What are the steps that they need to follow?
So the steps that consumers need to follow is to get in touch urgently with the manufacturers that have been stated if they are driving these vehicles, to also check with their VIN numbers. As I have already indicated, it involves a limited number of vehicles, not all of them, produced or sold or made available within a specific period. And what they can then do is check with their VIN numbers. Most of the suppliers have actually on their websites made available the platform wherein consumers can check with their VIN numbers, number one. Number two, they actually, because with VW, the Golfs that I've been talking about, they are quite recent, which means these are vehicles that at least suppliers would have their, the most recent contact details. And also, I think they can then book in their vehicles so that they are able to be fixed, so that they are also kept, safe on the road. As and when these incidents can arise. So consumers are now told to please go ahead and get in contact with the suppliers so that they can fix this defect.
And as we wrap up this afternoon, yes, we've spoken about the consumers, but from a business owner's perspective, let's say you are a dealership, for example, what are the type of insurances that are available to safeguard them in the likelihood of eventualities such as this occurring?
Yeah, I would suppose that they are properly insured for incidents like this, but because this is a manufacturer's problem, they would have to actually, in terms of their networks, have discussions with the manufacturers in order to make sure that the parts are delivered and they deal with it in-house, because this is part of the network negotiations that would then happen in terms of the vehicles. The second part of your previous question was with regard to what we do. So the National Consumer Commission has to monitor this recall. So on an ongoing basis, we receive reports in terms of the progress of the the recalls, whether, let's say, for example, from the 159, in the next week or so, we'll be getting, information from VW with regard to how many have been attended to and whether or not there are other interventions wherein we can improve with communication to consumers to have them fixed. But we will also be looking at whether any sort of negligence has happened from the side of suppliers, whether in communication or even in the supply and in dealing with the issues of the product recall. So we are monitoring it just to be able to monitor any kind of wrongdoing. And at this stage, we have not identified any, but we can, as the National Consumer Commission, proceed with a formal investigation in order to have punitive measures.
Ms. Prudence,
against the plan.
Ms. Prudence Muller, we thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Very, very important information that you are sharing with us. Ms. Prudence Muller is Head of Division for Complaints and Investigations at the National Consumer Commission. And if you are a dealer, you act obviously as a service agent. The responsibility, however, lies with the manufacturer, not the dealer. But if you are a dealer, you may be found negligent if you fail, for example, to notify a buyer of a known recall. In that instance, liability could shift, and that's where product liability and PI insurance becomes essential. So if you are a business owner and you are a dealership, it is your responsibility to alert the consumers and those who have purchased from you of this product recall. That brings us to exactly 36 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Let's head over now to the markets desk for the latest market indicators with Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Thami. Good afternoon. These are your indicators. $1 is trading at 17 rand 79 in South Africa, Botswana 13 pula 19, Namibia 17 Namibian dollar 79, Zambia 24 kwacha 17, Kenya the dollar is at 128 shilling 494 in Ethiopia and 137 beef 697, Uganda 3,568 shilling, Tanzania 2,632 shilling. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 529. Egypt, the dollar is 49 Egyptian pound 65. Tunisia, 2 dinar 89. Algeria, 128 dinar 765. Morocco, the dollar will cost you 8 dirham 90. Angola 912 kwanza, Congo 2,685 to the US dollar. Commodities, gold is at $3,293, platinum at $1,353 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $69.76 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And we head over now to the sports desk for the latest in the business of sport with Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Thami. A very good afternoon from the sports desk. So the Confederation of African Football, CAF, this week announced that in the process of increasing the money for the interclub competition starting next season. So in a media statement, the CAF announced that it was happy with the Governance Compliance Committee report on governance and non-compliance or weaknesses within the CAF Secretariat. Now, the statement also said that CAF were in the process of increasing the financial contributions by 100% to all clubs competing in the CAF interclub competitions as from next season. Just last year was the first time CAF contributed any funds to participating sides, contributing $50,000 and also want to increase it by $100,000 this coming season. During the meetings, the EXO also presented a short list of global marketing companies that have tendered in to partner with CAF for $1 billion financial contributions over the next 8 years. So according to the CAF president, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, Motsepe. These financial resources will contribute enormously to the development as well as the global competitiveness of African football and investment in youth football development as well as infrastructure. Further field now, Chelsea backed an additional $21 million this after defeating Fluminense in the FIFA Club World Cup semi-finals just last night, taking their total earnings from the tournament to more than $81 million. Now, the manager of the side, Enzo Maresca, handed a debut to new recruit João Pedro during the victory, following his immediate arrival in the States after finalising his transfer from Brighton and Hove Albion. So the win against the Brazilian side ineffectively helps now cover Pedro's $81 million transfer fee, with the potential for further financial gain on the horizon. So if Chelsea clinch the competition, they could pocket around $120 million US dollars, which will be a significant sum that will also alleviate concerns of any financial fair play violations amidst another summer of hefty spending in the transfer market. They've already acquired Liam Delep as well as from Ipswich Town for about $50 million US dollars, and also completed a deal for Jamie Gittins from Borussia Dortmund. Meanwhile, English football journalist Kav Sokol has more details in regards to the monies won by Chelsea at the ongoing FIFA Club World Cup.
Speaking of money, Chelsea have made £80 million in 3 weeks from playing in this tournament, and if they win the final, they will bank an extra £29 million. At the moment, of course, Chelsea don't have a shirt sponsor, but if they do win the final, at the very least, they will have a gold badge on their shirts for the next 4 years, which says that they are the FIFA World Champions.
Meanwhile, according to multiple reports in Portugal, Liverpool will pay out the remainder of Diogo Jota's contract to his family. Now, Jota's wife, as well as 3 kids, should receive close to $20 million as the forward had 2 years remaining on his 5-year contract with about $9.94 million per year. Jota spent about 5 years playing for Liverpool, scoring 65 goals in 182 games. He also helped the club win 4 titles, including 1 FA Cup, 2 EFL Cups, as well as most recently the 2024-2025 Premier League title. Jota and his brother passed away last Thursday following a car accident. And finally, in cricket news, the Indian Premier League business value has been estimated at $18.5 billion, with the reigning champions, the Royal Challengers Bengaluru, its wealthiest franchise, according to a report by an investment bank. Now, the world's richest cricket tournament has been a top revenue earner for the Board of Control for Cricket in India, also known as the BCCI, and back in 2020 was estimated to generate more than $11 billion a year for the Indian economy. According to the U.S. investment bank Hulan Loki, which has valued several sports franchises around the world, the brand value of the 10-team T20 franchise tournament has seen a sharp rise of 13.8% to $3.9 billion over the past year. Bengaluru, meanwhile, along with star player Virat Kohli, won the IPL title earlier this year and have overtaken the 5-time winners, the Chennai Super Kings, as well as the Mumbai Indians, to achieve a brand value of $269 million. The Mumbai Indians are second with $242 million, followed by the Chennai Super Kings, sitting currently on $235 million. And with that, as a wrap from the sports desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa. The African perspective.
It is exactly 4:43 Central African Time. Still coming up for you on Channel Africa today, a look at the latest performances of global and local markets. But before we do that, we once again focus on the BRICS summit, and this time not to do with the United States and the issues around the dollar, but a look at healthcare. The summit of the BRICS group of nations, which took place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, was seen as a platform where the most powerful political alliance in the global south was trying to revive as well as reinvent a collective approach to the world's problems. And key among them is universal health coverage. Ahead of the summit on the 6th and the 7th of July, health ministers within the bloc adopted the BRICS 15 Health Declaration, which seeks to reduce global health inequalities in the global south. For more on this, we joined on the line by Dr. Stavros Nicolaou, Pharmacare Group's Senior Executive responsible for strategic trade development. A very good afternoon to you once again, Dr. Stavros. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business. So the BRICS 15 Health Declaration seems to have been welcomed by several new countries. What does this expanded partnership mean for global health cooperation? Welcome.
Firstly, good afternoon to all the listeners, and thanks very much again for having me on your show. What does it mean? In short, it recognizes the vast health inequalities and inequities that exist, particularly when they relate to our continent. And just listening to the earlier report on all the football and all the prize money and the value of cricket teams, I think that places some perspective that we cannot flourish as a continent unless and until we achieve both health security and a strong element and component of health equity. Now, what is the declaration that was concluded at the end, the health declaration that was concluded at the end of the BRICS summit? What is that specifically and sort of more precisely outline? There is a very strong collaborative leaning and partnership within the BRICS nations to achieve local capacity, local capability, and lessen dependence on others outside, in our context, outside of the African continent. What does this mean in layman terms? It means that we've got to put up our own facilities. We have to have our own skills. We've got to retain our own talent on the continent. And we can do this in partnership with other BRICS nations in order to achieve that, so that we never have a situation as arose during COVID where Africa was left at the back end of the queue. And it's not only during COVID. I can cite Ebola recently, and also probably the most recent example is the outbreak of Mpox on the African continent. And we saw once again, Africa was at the back end of the queue, scrambling for vaccines around the world, never got the vaccines. And this trend will continue ad infinitum until and unless we have our own capacities and capabilities. So that's, for me, the central thematic that came out of this declaration. It's a very long-worded and unwieldy declaration, but if you cut through all of it, this was the main point and the main feature.
And as you said, this is beyond just vaccines. So it's beyond, eras or times of pandemics. It's really about the manufacturing of medicines, for the countries within the BRICS bloc and the global south. But if we're looking at timelines, Dr. Stavros, how soon can the BRICS countries reduce dependence on Western supply chains?
Look, you have a mix of countries within BRICS. You've got those that have highly developed pharmaceutical, vaccine, and med technology industries, such as India, for example, and China. South Africa is somewhere in the middle, and countries like Indonesia are somewhere in the middle. And then, possibly Russia you could put in that sort of middle road. And then there are those countries that have got limited capability, such as Ethiopia, for example. Now, how do all of these countries work together? I'm more seized on what these countries can do in accelerating and giving momentum to the African Pharmaceutical Industrialization Project, as it's called. What is this project exactly? The African Union in 2022, it's about 2 years ago, resolved that it should acquire 60% of its vaccine and pharmaceutical requirements for its own people from African manufacturers by 2040. It's quite a steep ambition, but one that if the necessary actions are taken, and by actions I mean government supporting this, the multilateral institutions like Gavi, UNICEF, PEPFAR and others assisting and changing the procurement modalities. And then, of course, significantly reducing the red tape. I think what is materially dragging back the African manufacturing project is the immense bureaucracy and red tape that exists not only on the continent but beyond the continent when one has to deal with the World Health Organization. So if we're able to address all of these areas and address them timelessly and effectively, then I think we can be on track for 2040. Conversely, if we don't and we continue to be laggards, then unfortunately our people on the continent, when they need vaccines, when they need medical countermeasures, will continue to find themselves at the back end of the queue. That affects lives and livelihoods, and it also materially affects economies on the continent. Put differently, there is a direct correlation between investing in our own pharmaceutical capacity and production and enhanced productivity and economic growth on the African continent.
And what role will the BRICS Vaccine Research and Development Center play in preparing for future pandemics or disease outbreaks? You mentioned there the red tape around the World Health Organization, for example. But internally, what role will the R&D of BRICS play in this?
So the facility, which I think is not a facility that is going to provide solutions immediately. It has to be set up and resourced and capacitated, etc. Its role will be to provide a pipeline of interventions, whether it's vaccines or other immunological related products. So that's what it will do, and it will license these products to African companies so that African companies can produce vaccines and other measures for the African continent.
Dr. Stavros, we're going to leave it at that for this afternoon, but thank you so much for the update of some of the outcomes of the BRICS summit, specifically around universal health coverage. That's Dr. Stavros Nicolaou, Pharmacare Group's Senior Executive responsible for strategic trade development. He takes us to exactly 4:52.
Thami Ngubeni on Africa in Business, 4 till 5 p.m. Central African Time.
Now, SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and the ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs and heartache, as well as the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. All you need to do is download SABC Plus on your various app stores. Don't miss Chasing the Sun, this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Let's take a look now at the latest business and financial market developments. And for this, we're joined by Lindile Malchas, investment strategist at Absa Investments. Good to have you with us once again, and a very good day to you.
Good afternoon, Thami, and as always, a pleasure to be on the show.
Perhaps let's start off by unpacking the latest performances of global and local markets.
So when we're looking at performance, we are seeing a bit of mixed bags. So what is trading higher today was European, UK, and the Nikkei that was up. And then on the other hand, we did see Chinese shares, those closing a bit lower. And then bringing it back to our local markets, they are trading a bit flat. So we are seeing losses being recorded in the financials and resources sectors, but we are seeing that being partly offset by gains in the industrial shares. And then looking at the rand, it is trading slightly stronger today, so trading below 17 rand 80 to the dollar.
And what is the latest update on the U.S. reciprocal tariffs that are set to take effect on the 1st of August?
So we've seen an announcement coming out of the U.S. administration. So they have said that starting the 1st of August, countries will face new reciprocal tariff rates. And from our perspective, from a South African perspective, there hasn't been a material change within those tariff rates. So still maintaining the same 30% compared to what we saw on the 2nd of April. And ultimately, for all countries globally, this does have an impact from an economic point of view. So markets are starting to price in the prospects of slower economic growth and also pricing in the prospects of higher inflation, which does also make it hard for things such as monetary policy to intervene.
30% yes for South Africa. There's also the additional 10% that Donald Trump says he'll impose on countries within BRICS and those that are quote-unquote anti-American. Has this extra 10% been factored in?
Yes, so I think markets are still becoming a bit more cautious, as you've seen that when it comes to these tariff developments, there is quite a lot of uncertainty. So markets, I think, will be keeping a close eye in terms of what South Africa can negotiate out of that. But it is quite key to come out with a favorable negotiation because the U.S. does make up some of our top trading partners.
And what impact are these tariffs likely to have on the U.S.'s GDP internally? What impact will it have domestically on the United States?
So I think it may still be early to tell. But if you're looking at some of the data that did come out, so first quarter GDP, we did see a contraction within the US of about 0.5%. Some of that coming from some of the importers within the US importing ahead of those tariffs. So that did affect the economy negatively. And then ultimately how it stands to affect the economy is that real GDP growth will be revised lower due to those higher inflation expectations. So ultimately, the producers will have to pass on these price increases onto consumers, which will then drive inflation higher.
And as we wrap up this afternoon, Lindile, what should the market look out for in terms of economic data releases this week?
Yes, so not much to move the market, but I think from a local side, we are expecting the release tomorrow of the manufacturing production figures. And this is quite a key number to watch out for. As we've seen, the manufacturing industry has been under severe pressure. So it will be good to look at how the momentum is going for the second quarter. As we've seen, the first quarter was not that great.
Lindile Malgas, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Thami.
Thank you. That's Lindile Malgas, investment strategist at Absa Investment. It is exactly 4:57 Central African time, and that's how we wrap up Africa in Business for today. But we're not going to leave you before finding out what Vue d'Afrique has in store for us. Bonjour, Joël.
Bonjour à toi, Thami. Bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa sur Vue d'Afrique. Il sera question de la Guinée. Un an, jour pour jour, après leur disparition forcée, toujours pas de nouvelles des 2 militants du FNDC, mais aussi de 5 présidents africains reçus à partir de ce mercredi à Washington, et également de la flambée de choléra préoccupante. Les autorités lancent un appel urgent à l'aide humanitaire. C'est sur Vue d'Afrique tout à l'heure. Merci de rester connecté. Merci, Thami.
Merci, Joël. That's how we come to the end of Africa in Business for today. Thank you to our sterling team, our producer Mabo Bullock, our technical operator Dando Lutuli, on social media Nzako Mashaba, from the news desk Onele Nzinzi, economic desk Chanduko Legege, and from the sporting desk Musibudi Makura. I'm Thami Ngubeni, and this has been Africa in Business on Channel Africa.